Today, we are going to talk about how to set your bike up with SFuels RACE products for your 70.3 or full Ironman distance race. Hey, I'm Coach Aaron, and I have Leighton with me to help. We got a question this week, so Leighton, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hey buddy, good to see you again. Thanks for hosting the series. And yeah, we got a pretty lengthy question actually, talking, an athlete that obviously had used other fueling options on the market, has moved to SFuels, wants to know how to spec and rig their bike setup for fueling for 70.3 and Ironman. So we answered the customer, but would love to put it on video so everyone can check this out. So Aaron, I know your bike is a different setup than what I've got here. So why don't you run through yours and then I'll run through mine. There's a lot of similarities, but there's some nuances.
Absolutely. And I race on a Ventum, and I have my water bottle integrated into the bike. So I'm really, this gray piece that you see is a water bottle, and it has 1.4 liters. So typically that's about the size of normal 2 bottles of fluid in that sense.
Gotcha.
So really for me, depending on if we're looking at a 70.3 distance, I am going to have 4 servings of Race Plus in here with water. On the back half, I have my 2 cages on the back of my seat post, because I do not have a down tube that allows me to stick that bottle on the down tube. In one of those, I start with the Train, which I have 2 servings of the Train on the back, typically left side, and I consume that within the first hour or 30 minutes really in the Iron or half Ironman bike distance. And from there, I then, in the second bottle on the right-hand side, I have concentrated Race Plus, which typically on the half Ironman distance, I'm really going to have another 4 servings in this one bottle with a little bit more water in it. In the distance of a full Ironman, I am going to tick that up and have both of these bottles being concentrated with at least 6 servings in each one. And in that, I'm going to have, sometimes I would race with a clear bottle just to be able to see how much I have. I would then flip open my fuselage reservoir stopper and then squeeze in that particular level. Right, going into an aid station, I would then grab water and then water that down.
Gotcha.
So that we're not too concentrated. So in that particular sense, I do not believe in having water just sitting on my bike, because that's taking up valuable real estate in that sense. So I'm typically just.
You mean after you spend 10 grand on your bike, you don't want to weigh it down with a kilogram of water? Is that what you mean?
Well, it's more of just that I only have a certain amount of places where I can hold anything. So if I start putting things on, I end up having to take something off.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, hey, this is a little different setup than yours, probably a bit more traditional. Let me just come around here and show you what we've got. Fairly standard frame structure, Quintana Roo. So, if you will, down tube, we would hold the concentrate that Adam referred to. Aaron was talking, 4 serves in a 70.3, 6 serves in a full, and you'd have the double barrel, if you will, behind the seat. So in the SFuels RACE Plus product, we're not using any refined sugars, so that's why we can go up to those higher grams per hour. But yeah, this is where you'd hold your concentrate. It'll be dosed up in here. Like Aaron said, maybe a clear bottle makes sense for a race, where you can basically mark, if it's a 5-hour race, you divide it by 5, so that as you're going through the aid stations, you've got your water up the front, and basically you're putting, a fifth, if you will, into your bottle. A method that most athletes are using, of course, is to, prior to the race, have your first serve already set up in your front navigation hydration system. And you'd have your first serve there, and then your remaining 4 or 5 serves sitting in your concentrate, in your down tube, As you're going through the 8 stations, obviously you're just refilling here and hitting it with water to keep it filled up. The other piece, Aaron, we should just touch on too is just, okay, how do we integrate between the fuel of these bottles and caffeine? So maybe we can talk about using primed with Race Plus in the front navigation, hydration, or in your fuselage in your case, just to give people a sense of how to bring that together.
And that's a great question. And typically we are going to want to take that early on in the race portion of the bike. So in your particular sense, we would definitely have that on the hydration station in between your bars. I'm already going to have the servings that I need. And again, it's going to be based on your kilograms. And so your body weight is going to determine how many sachets you're going to need. But in this particular case, I'm already going to have that particular serving size in, especially for the full distance Ironman, it's going to be in my fuselage here that's on the bike. In the other sense, if I'm doing a 70.3, it's going to be mixed in on that left-hand side where I'm going to be taking in train for that first 30 minutes of the ride.
Got it.
And then allow that to be mixed in with that first part of the ride on a 70.3 distance.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, for everyone's benefit, if it's purely a cognitive function that you're seeking from caffeine, you know, you need fairly low levels of that. That really starts an hour before the race, where you would probably take one serve. You're stimulating basically a dopamine reception, that your cognitive levels come up as you get into the race start. But if you were really trying to use caffeine to upregulate even further the fat oxidation, we're needing about 2.5 to 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight. So if you're a 70 kilogram person, you need 210 milligrams thereabouts of caffeine. A single sachet of SFuels primed has a measured dose of 80 milligrams of caffeine. So you need, 2.5, 3 of those. And like Aaron said, so if you needed three doses to get a fat oxidation upregulation, one dose happens an hour before the race, and then you'd have 2 serves of primed mixed in with your fuel in the front of your bike, so that your first, 60 minutes of your bike, you're already consuming that caffeine. You're going to get the benefit earlier on in the race rather than a drip feed of caffeine across the race, and the effect is really minimized. So that's how you maximize it. Any other points, Aaron, you talk as it relates to the bike? Because I do want to quickly talk about for ultra running, what athletes would do as it relates to holding their fuel.
I think the one thing that we should talk on is individuals are a lot of the times are going to have a bento box on their bike as well. And sometimes how you're going to set that bento box up and what's going to be in that bento box, because now really by this particular breakdown and how well you're oxidizing fat, you might not need that additional bento box to be filled to the brim with whatever type of other nutrition that you want. But in that particular sense, I also, through the course of a full Ironman distance bike, I like to at least have something that I could chew on just to kind of break some of the monotony on the bike. So typically I do have a integrated bento box on my race hydration system here. And what I typically have is pre-cut SFuels Life bars. And typically what I do is have those broken down into one bar cut up into 4 sections. Right. And then I'm able to take in one of those every 20 to 30 minutes on the bike. And it just kind of breaks the monotony of getting all my hydration for most of the day in an Ironman through liquid nutrition.
No, I agree. It makes sense. I mean, getting that done, in the middle of the bike, by the time you get to the run leg, of course, most of that's moved through the stomach. With the life bars, they come through pretty fast. So yeah, a lot of athletes are using it that way. Sit in the bento box, no problem at all. For most athletes, to your point, it's just a function of, I just like to chew on something. I've been out here for 3 or 4 hours. And that all said, still there's obviously quality fuel and protein inside of that bar to help through the end of the race. So let's chat a little, just quickly, if I can reach up here and come back into frame. you know, ultra running scene, of course. And by the way, we'll have a separate session just on how to also set up your run leg of a 70.3 and Ironman. Aaron and I will do another session on that. We're going to be launching a new product as part of that, and we'll give you the full insight into that. But that's coming up in the next few weeks. In a ultra running scene, of course, you typically are running with a race vest. In the race vest, there's, you know, obviously its own reservoir, which can be obviously set up with SFuels RACE Plus in the same way we just talked about, where it's sitting on your back, and it's holding most of those anywhere between 1 and 2 liters. But increasingly, we're seeing that the back of the backpack, the race vest, is used for storing usually mandatory things you have to take for the ultras, particularly the ones that go through the night. But in the front pockets, of course, they're using the soft flasks. And we're seeing a lot of athletes where they will preload the soft flasks with, you know, Race Plus to the concentration they know they're using per hour, and they'll keep it dry. So they will fill 2 of these in the front when they start the race with water, and then they'll have extra versions of these soft flasks sitting in the back of their race vest with the Race Plus in it, but no water. And they're basically rolled up into a really compact bottle, and it's basically sitting in the back of the vest. And as you obviously go through the aid stations, you fill it with water and keep going. So it's a really efficient way, super light, fast through the aid stations. You're going to get your nutrition right in terms of ensuring that you're consuming both hydration and fuel at the right loads through each hour of the race. And again, if you want to, as you get into, you know, the second half of the race, it's going to be where you're going through the evening, through the night. That may be where you want to specifically use a colored version of the soft flask, knowing that the colored version is the ones that's going to have your caffeine in it, right? And they're the ones you're grabbing as you get into the night, particularly as you get a long way into the ultra, and thought process is not always straight. Make it super simple for you. Pink ones are with caffeine, the blue ones are without caffeine. Simple things like that is how a lot of the ultra runners are using, Aaron, these soft flasks for fueling with SFuels.
Seems like a great way to, one, conserve a lot of space on yourself. You're not adding a whole bunch of poundage. You're also kind of segmenting how much each flask is going to have to your specific needs. And again, taking up such small space and such light weight, it seems like that's a great idea and a way to really allow you to succeed to the best of your ability without lugging around another, you know, couple of kilos.
No, you're right. We have a bunch of athletes trying that here in the US, and then in Europe with the ultra scene over there. So yeah, it's getting fairly popular. Folks, if you have any questions, send them our way. Love to know more about it. Back to you, Aaron, to close out on today's Monday Mindshare.
Well, as Leighton talked about, we want to make sure that we are reaching those of you that are watching these videos. And if you have questions, we want to make sure that we implement some of these videos to kind of breaking that maybe that confusion, or kind of bridge the gap on certain things that we work with on a day-to-day basis that some of our viewers might not be working with on a normal day-to-day basis. So it's great to have you on. I'm looking forward to having you on in the future, and let's just start to build. We do have new products coming out soon, so continue to tune into Monday Mindshare, because we'll be dropping one of those products very, very soon, and we look forward to having you being a part of it. So
cool.
We'll see
Thanks,
you next
Brad.
week.
Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks again.